There is a French Civil War on the rise, but it's probably going to be in gaming, not in the streets, but maybe still, but most likely in gaming. We have Sandfall Interactive here that has just delivered a holy hand grenade into the middle of French gaming with Clair Obscure Expedition 33. Arguably the most French game I've ever seen. You could even dress up your characters like mimes with even the red little beret hat and make them prance around in flower fields like those Monet paintings. It is probably the most excessively French thing I have seen in quite a while. And meanwhile, on the opposite side of this, fellow French game producer Ubisoft is being sued for stealing your information. That's right, Running with Scissors has a really great encapsulation of this. So we're just going to quote him on it. It says, "So Ubisoft says you don't own the games you buy, forces you to an online always connection. Then, when you play single player games, and on top of all that, they now have the audacity to illegally harvest your data." And so here it is. It says Ubisoft Game Company faces 79 million euro pound. I think that's a pound. I think that's the pound. Fine as privacy experts uncover hidden data harvesting. And it says right down here, this is the most scandalous part of it, by the way. You can read the article wherever it is, but this is the part that really got me. Ubisoft may be forced to overhaul its data practices and scrap mandatory online connections for single player titles. That's the whole thing about Assassin's Creed Shadows is you had to be an online always connect, had to have an online always connection, right? Remember that? For a single player game. Very bizarre, but now we understand why they're harvesting your data. Hold it. It looks like 73% of you watching this aren't subscribed. Time to click that button. You know where to find it. So now, with that information going out there, you've got Clair Obscure, produced by Sandfall Interactive, that's taking over the gaming world. You know, by the way, this is a studio of 30 people that put this game together versus the 19,000 that Ubisoft has that intermingled to work on Assassin's Creed Shadows. Now let's look at this right here. You've got the Expedition 33 dev team, all these people right here, and then, oh yeah, here's the Shadows developers. Wow. I wonder why. Wonder why which game is sending thrills up people's spines and why the other one's just another iteration in the franchise and kind of a lackluster one. In fact, players that played both of these games report that Expedition 33 manages to marry together the turn-based tactics of the Final Fantasy battle system with the Souls-like do or die. The enemy is sort of an erratic monster that will choose different pathways as the battle gets more intense. So, again, like, you're dealing with a different beast here as opposed to Assassin's Creed Shadows. It was like, well, sometimes it snows and sometimes it does not snow. Sometimes it is raining, sometimes it's not raining. Isn't that neat, guys? That'll make assassinating super difficult because it's snowing. Yeah, yeah. Meanwhile, the Clair Obscure people took a chapter from the JRPG folks and decided to marry the concepts of the, again, like I said, the Souls-like sort of warped reality, monsters that are twisted and inhuman in appearance, and also kind of merged with physical items in order to make them even more inhuman and inorganic in their appearance, versus you got to stab this guy because he shot this guy's mom way back when that had nothing to do with the present plot of the story, but is ham-fisted, that's the word. It's ham-fisted into the end because whatever, it's what we do here at Ubisoft. Who cares about jiggle physics, right? Well, check it out. Apparently the folks over at Clair Obscure, the Sandfall Studios there, Sandfall Interactive, they decided that they cared about jiggle physics. And you know what? We're here for it. We're here for it. Thankfully, there's a studio out there from France that's holding it down, right? That's holding it down, fellas. We're just gonna take a minute and just kind of, oh yeah, those are some French boobies right there. Those are some French polygonal boobies right there. If you're a Frenchman, you should be proud of those polygonal boobies. Those are rare. You don't get to see them like that coming out of French no more. Coming out of French land no more. France, French land, whatever it is. You don't see those coming out of there anymore. You see a bunch of dudes in makeup, kind of like what happened at the Olympics there. Yeah, you see a lot of that coming out of there. You don't see a lot of this. You don't see a lot of nature's majesty coming out of France these days. So if you're a French guy out there, French patriot, this is for you, pal. This is those are some French boobs. That's worth fighting for. That's worth fighting for. I could see why Gustav went as far as he did. By the way, that guy's played by Charlie Cox. I thought that was Batman, Peterson, sparkly Batman, vampire Batman, whatever you want to call him. Peterson there. I thought that, yeah, I think that's his name, right? I don't remember the Peter whatever, the Batman guy. I thought that was him, but actually no, it's Charlie Cox, the Daredevil fella. How about that, huh? Yeah, it was a small world apparently. Apparently this indie studio had enough pull to be able to get that guy to come on, and hey, apparently he sent it out of the park. You guys got to play the game. Apparently it's really something to see. So, and Dimian talks very highly of it. He's only played 8 hours of it. And he's astonished by all the little pocket quests that are all over the place that seem to have a very memorable angle to them, as opposed to Assassin's Creed that was like, crap, we got to fill 80 hours, and just kind of invented a bunch of stuff as filler. So, but to kind of fill this out, we do have Nick Tech that kind of encapsulates this whole thing with Ubisoft and Sandfall and kind of explains where they're at as opposed in the market space, how we're perceiving them. And so Nick Tech brings this to us. This is NIKTEK official over on X.com. Feel free to follow this person. Sandfall Interactive, a team of 33 employees that developed Clair Obscur Expedition 33, which managed to outperform every single Ubisoft game from the past year on Steam charts, as you just saw. Ubisoft has approximately over 18,000 employees. That's not just that's just their who works for Ubisoft, not their studios that they regularly collaborate with that might as well be part of the company. And so here's what Nick Tech says. He says, and much higher resources to make a well-designed quadruple A game. Yet these video games have failed to reach the number of players compared to Expedition 33's player counts. It's worth noting that Star Wars Outlaws and Skull and Bones did not have a day one release on Steam. But it's very interesting to see this phenomenon, especially when Skull and Bones is supposed to have a massive player base due to it being live service and a quadruple A game. What blows my mind, and this is Nick Tech, is that Sandfall Interactive CEO is an ex-Ubisoft employee. Their game came out literally a day ago at the time of this writing. It was unavailable. It was available day one via Game Pass, and it still managed to outperform every Ubisoft game in Steam charts in terms of number of active players. Ubisoft should really go back to the drawing board and look for what gamers actually want. In the air, they created this chart here as an example. Again, this was 71,000, as I showed you at the beginning of this. We had over 100,000, over 120,000 actually. And again, Ubisoft's offerings have come nowhere near that. The closest is Assassin's Creed Shadows, and that was a one-time deal that happened. Now, again, they tell us there's millions of players here, there's millions of players there. They won't explain how that works. We come to find out from CADA that you can't uninstall Assassin's Creed Shadows unless you are a paid subscriber to the Ubisoft launcher. So that's a fun one. Enjoy that. Enjoy that one. You're trapped with it forever unless you want to give Ubisoft however many dollars just to get it off your system. It's like a pest control service that's built into the pest, right? Imagine if the ants were selling you get rid of ants, Pay $5 to get rid of ants, and the ants are the ones getting rid of the ants. It's ridiculous. They get you coming and going. But that's the problem with this whole thing right here. Sandfall Interactive sat back and said, what is a game? And they answered that question. Ubisoft sat back and said, how can we get an agenda rammed into people's skulls as clumsily as possible? And they went with that. And you can see who's winning that tug of war. Now, I look forward to finding out what happens in the Expedition 33 story as we continue to see more gameplay come out. And also, on the other side of this, hopefully Sandfall continues to pursue this style of game. It seems to be very popular with people to merge together Final Fantasy turn-based tactics, right? The turn-based battle tactic system, with the Souls-like system where you have a chaotic enemy. And also, it seems to be that the Expedition 33 characters each have their own skill trees that aren't like, oh, this character got 5 more points. According to Endymion, what's happening is that each character has new unlockable abilities that then become part of an interplayed web, right? Where each hero has an ability that then triggers another hero's ability that you can interlock into more powerful attacks. So Not only is it a game that has a full world with lots of Frenchy French things in it, it also really has an in-depth combat system that took itself seriously instead of just throwing two different styles into a blender and calling it a day. We'll have to wait and find out if it holds water here into the next week or not after the initial honeymoon phase of how cool it is wears off and the actual like grind of it comes in, but you'll have to let me know what you think about this down in the comments below. And as always, guys, good luck out there.